Hello and welcome back. It's so hard to believe we're already here at episode 9 of our series counting down my top 100 favorite games of all time. We've seen everything from Hello Kitty to Fatal Frame, and everything that lies in between. But I have a question for you. Which game would you try out of everything I've suggested so far? But you might want to hold that thought for right now because we're not done yet. In this episode, we're going to count down from 20 to 11, and then in the next two, we're going to count down from 10 to 6 and 5 to 1. But you might want to hold that thought because we still have a countdown to do for today's video that you can add to that list. But as for right now, let's put a little rules refresher up on the screen, and then we're going to throw it over to Pascal for the rule. No two games from the same series unless they are drastically different. Examples again, 2D Mario versus 3D Mario, and side games are allowed, but per side game series, I can only have one entry. So I can't have two Mario parties, but I could have a Mario Kart and a Mario Party. Once again, another excellent performance by Pascal, and I'm not going to hold on to you for any longer. Let's get into the countdown. Number 20, WarioWare Inc. Mega Micro Games. As someone who loves minigame compilations, and in fact having quite a few on this list already, and I know of at least one more coming up later, the WarioWare franchise has always been one that's interested me, but none have been better than the one that started it all, on the Game Boy Advance specifically. While the GameCube version is fine, I feel like on the Game Boy Advance, it was a little more pick up and play. You could kinda just go and do it whenever needed. Specifically, I like the 9-volt stages the most, however, I believe that Wario's boss fight, like the first one, was by far the best in the entire series. And I haven't even really thought about any others in that same realm. While you could sit down and play the majority of this game's content within one afternoon, it's one you're going to want to keep coming back to, keep trying to be better at. It's very high score based, it's very like survival based, and it's something that keeps drawing me back in every single time I pick up my GBA. It's not even an exclusive idea that it is addictive, but it has a very good cast of characters, whether you're talking about Jimmy T, 9-volt, or even Mona. But while these characters aren't just figureheads, they actually each have their own minigame types associated with them, and that was a cool little feature that I really enjoy. But in general, if you love minigame compilations, this is going to be something right up your alley. If you're looking for something with a little more meat to sink into with the same gameplay loop, maybe try WarioWare Smooth Moves. Number 19, Sonic Adventure 2. Sonic Adventure 2 really does feel like I'm rolling around at the speed of sound with no place to go, and I do have to follow my rainbow, which I do think is a perfect analogy for this game. You're rolling around at the speed of sound, flying through the adventure levels and Sonic and Shadow stages. You really have no place to go and explore in the Tails and Eggman stages, and in the Rouge and Knuckles stages, you're really just following your rainbow, trying to find each Chaos Emerald, getting that little indicator light every single time you're near it. But I guess you could say as you're playing the game, you're really living and learning. All joking aside, Sonic Adventure 2 is one of the greatest platformers to ever exist. Not only does it have great platforming sections in the Sonic and Shadow stages, but the mech stages that most people usually find a little bit boring are probably the most interesting in the game for me, just because I like that style of gameplay. It's slow, it's methodical, but at the same time you're being judged on things like accuracy and speed, which is something I personally really enjoy in these games. Notice how I didn't say anything about the Knuckles or Rouge stages though. Not a big fan of them. They have some of the best music in the game, and I'll definitely give it its credit where credit's due. I'm sure they're fun to somebody out there, but it's not me. But for me, Sonic Adventure 2 really shines in a couple of different areas. While the gameplay itself is important, nothing is as important in this game to me as the Chow Garden. I don't know what it is, but I absolutely love watching Chow Karate and Chow races. I was that one weird kid who actually carried the VMU to like school with him and actually had my Chow with me. Playing Sonic Adventure 2 casually is just a blast to just plow through. However, if you're going for the completionist perspective, which I personally have every single time I've had it, some of those emblems towards the end do get a little bit tedious, but I feel like this game is one of the best rewards in all of gaming for completionist 100%. If you don't know what that is, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it's definitely worth checking it out. Number 18, Cruisin' World. I've been playing the cruising games ever since I first encountered them in arcades back in the 90s. I love the entire cruising franchise. However, not all of the games are created equally, and we have been absolutely spoiled by the job that Midway and Nintendo did back in the 90s. And we're still spoiled today with the way Raw Thrills brought back the series in 2017. We don't talk about the 2008 cruising though. That's literally just a reskin of the Fast and Furious arcade game. Anyway, back to my point, not all of these games are created equal. Cruising USA did not have enough content and variety to hold my interest. Cruising Exotica was too exotic. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's true. I don't need to be driving in the fucking ocean. All I need is a good selection of cars, a moderate amount of tracks, and some decent visuals and controls. That's where Cruising World comes in. Basing itself off of real life locations and countries, you're getting much more realistic tracks, but you're still getting that fun twisting and turning that you get from a standard arcade affair. But now it's at home on the Nintendo 64, and we're losing a little bit of graphical fidelity, but I'm willing to exchange that for the control method. You see, the Cruising arcade cabinets had what I like to call pushback. When you're trying to turn right, the steering wheel wants to go left. I don't know if it's just the machine that I own, or it's one of the multiple machines that I've played over the years. But I feel like every time I sit down at a cruising cabinet, it always has this little pushback. Get it? There's gonna be resistance or whatever. But this is way more than I would see in like Hydro Thunder, San Francisco Rush, or even anything like that. But let's get back to actual gameplay. It is very smooth. There's a wonderful selection of cars. I always use the Kamikaze. I don't know why, but I do. My only actual problem with Cruising World is that there's no difficulties, and by that I mean tracks are labeled easy, medium, and hard. However, I feel like some of the medium tracks are way harder than all of the hard tracks, and like some of those hard tracks are the easiest in the game. I don't know how they came up with this structure, but it doesn't work that well. But other than that little footnote, this is definitely a game you should give a shot. I especially recommend it if you're seeing it in the arcade. However, if you see a copy of Cruising World for around 20 bucks, which is what it goes for on price charting, scoop it up. Number 17, NFL Blitz 2001. Hey guys, guess what? It's Midway again. And despite them going out of business in 2010, they're always going to be in my heart, and especially a part of this list. I don't know what kind of secret sauce they had in the late 90s, early 2000s when it came to these arcade games, but they were absolutely nailing it. But that's enough gushing about the developers themselves. Let's talk about the actual game. The NFL Blitz franchise has always had very refined controls, yet they're very simplistic. Usually you can play them with just 4 buttons total, not including your analog stick. And I know that sounds like a lot for an arcade game, but it's really not. Also, by the way, we're not here to talk about the arcade version of this game. While the arcade version is good, and I recognize it as the best version of this game, we're here to talk about 2 other ones. The Nintendo 64 version and the Sega Dreamcast version. First, let's hop into the 64 version. It holds most of the content that the arcade version has, but it brings it to a home console, which gives it an analog stick to actually control it rather than a joystick. And I feel like this configuration to actually play the game feels a lot more intuitive to me, especially with the weird anomaly we call the N64 controller. However, the gameplay still played buttery smooth, and we had a litany of more options on home consoles than we did in the arcade. Like specifically, we had create a play, we had a dedicated season mode, and we had different difficulty settings. The home version also featured an expanded playbook, bringing back my favorite play in the entire series, Uppercut. I know for most people this is just gonna look like another sports game, but it's so much more than that, and I would go as far to consider it a party game more than a sports game itself. I implore you to give this a shot, even if you're just loading up Project 64, is what I would say if the Dreamcast version didn't exist, because it has all of those cool features that the N64 version has, but now it's in 480p rather than 256. And it's not just the base resolution that has been fixed. Gameplay sliders have actually been slightly adjusted. It's a little bit harder in this version to do basic things like run the ball, because the CPU reacts so much faster in this one. This is just the definitive version of this game, and there's no way to actually change my mind. Not to mention, the character models are almost double as detailed compared to what we had on the 64. Everybody kind of looked the same on the 64, but you could definitely tell the difference between like what's a lineman and what's a receiver on the Dreamcast. So if you're going to play this game, please play the Dreamcast version. It doesn't matter if you load it up on Flycast, Redream, or even you go get the disc for $10. Please play NFL Blitz. Doesn't even have to be 2001, any of them. I recommend 2001 because it has a lot of features. But if you grab 2002 or even 98, you're still gonna have a great experience. Number 16, WCW vs NWO World Tour. So this was a game I actually played with my dad a lot back in the day, so it's a very sentimental one to me. It's one of the very few that you would actually pick up and play, like, religiously. The controls are very complex, but they're also very simple at the same time, if that makes sense. For a wrestling game, it's uncommon for them to use directional controls in the same way that, like, a Capcom fighter would, but this game kinda does. Like, your A button is your grapple, and your B button is your strikes. And then based on which direction you have the D-pad facing will determine the type of move that you actually do. However, there is a huge caveat with the way that this game controls, and that is that the C buttons are responsible for everything from Irish whipping, changing your grapple style, to even pinning. Pinning is C down for some reason, and there's no analog stick support, which is weird for a Nintendo 64 game. As someone who is a much bigger fan of WCW than I ever was of WWF, the selection of wrestlers themselves, while it isn't a huge roster, is a very good, complete roster of the time capsule that is this era. Because you do have those superstars that went on to become WWE superstars later, but you really get to see their roots in some of those original costumes that they used back in WCW. The perfect example is Rey Mysterio Jr. and Eddie Guerrero. The music in this game is perfect for what I would imagine a wrestling game should have. Of course, some of the SmackDown vs. Raws with the licensed music and all that is really cool, but just the N64 sound font with like this metal soundtrack that you're probably hearing in the background right now, because I don't think there's any issues actually playing it, is one of my favorites on the 64. And I know I've said that about a couple games, but I really do like the N64 sound chip. But let's take a step back and talk about the Aki engine at first, because Aki's wrestling games have went down in infamy for how good they actually were. It was so good that WWF actually bought the license for Aki to make their games after WCW declined it on their end. So then we got games like No Mercy and WrestleMania 2000, which people still play and do mods for today. But I'm not gonna lie to you guys and say this is some timeless classic that you absolutely need to play, because it's not. It's a simple wrestling game from a time where wrestling was not so simple. And if you like that Attitude Era / like Nitro era of WCW, you're gonna really like this cast in this game. However, if you're looking for something with a little more polished gameplay on the same system, either play WWF No Mercy or WCW NWO Revenge. I can't really recommend playing World Tour just because Revenge does exist and it is technically the better game and it has slightly better controls as well. But I personally have a sentimental value associated with World Tour, and I acknowledge its flaws, but I also see how good of a game it actually is on its own merit as well. Number 15, New Super Luigi U. The New Super Mario Bros. Franchise really started to feel dull as we were entering the Wii U era, and while New Super Mario Bros. U is a good game, New Super Luigi U takes it to a whole nother level. The time limit is 99 seconds for every single level, with the exclusion of the final boss, I believe. Every single thing you do in Super Luigi U is something you'd kinda do in Super Mario Bros. U, but with that lowered timer, the gameplay and stages have to be condensed a little bit, and it makes the game flow a lot faster, but completing it still gives you that same rewarding feeling as if you would completing a normal 2D Mario game. Plus, every single stage has a hidden little Luigi in it, and it's very cute. If you've played a New Soup game before, you'll definitely know how solid the controls are. They didn't reinvent the wheel on the Wii U, however, they do bring over the tap to create a platform. I think New Super Luigi U is the quintessential 2D Mario game. As much as I love games like 3, World, and even Mario Mario USA, the controls are just simply better and more refined here. And yeah, I get that, newer game, recency bias, whatever, but it actually controls so smoothly, and they nailed Luigi's controls, because he doesn't just play like a clone of Mario. He plays a little similar to Super Mario 2 Luigi, where he's a little bit slidey, a little more floaty, and I really like that. I do have a really good memory of this game though, and that was that I randomly just got like this little pocket generator thing, and it wasn't even that small. It was basically like a car battery, and it had a port on it to plug in like normal fucking appliances. So I decided, while I'm taking a road trip across the country with my band, I'm going to bring my Wii U. Is it childish? Yes. Was it a great time when I'm not driving? Abso-fucking-lutely. And I never ran out of stuff to do. If I finished the game, there were always more objectives, or like there were extra levels I could have unlocked, or like a different path I could have taken on a second gameplay, and it was just a very good experience at a time that was also a very good experience for me in life. Don't go buy a Wii U just to play this game though. If you have the Cemu emulator on your computer, give it a shot that way. It has pretty good compatibility, and the only issues are a couple shader things. So just give it a chance to compile before you start it. Just download the shader pack and it'll be perfectly fine. Number 14, Snowboard Kids 2. I know you guys are absolutely in shock. There's another Nintendo 64 game on this list, and I hate to say it, but it probably won't be the last, honestly. I really think I should do a count at the end of the series, detailing like what systems got how many games and which games were on which system, because I feel like that'd be pretty interesting. Let me know if that's something you'd want to see in either the finale or the recap episode. Anyway, back to Snowboard Kids 2. It's not like any other racing game that's on the system. Like, there's really nothing to compare it to except for Snowboard Kids 1, and obviously that's the same franchise. However, we will compare it to Snowboard Kids 1 because it's the only other similar thing on the system. Now, instead of just selecting things from a menu, it has a little bit more interactivity where you're in like this little town area where you can either go to like the board shop, the trick palace, or you could go do like the mail delivery game, or you could do like actual races. The cast has nearly doubled since Snowboard Kids 1, and it's not like they're just shoving random kids at you. Some of them actually do have very heavy plot points, like Damien, the antagonist of the game. However, I feel like he's a lot more misunderstood than he is a true antagonist. While he has bad intentions, he kinda wants to blend in a little bit, and the whole art style is just so chibi. It's very cute. If you like that Sanrio art style mixed with like early 90s, like mid 90s, like Silicon graphics style, you're gonna like the way this game looks, especially with all the renders and stuff, like the cover art. Oh, I love that so much. There's so many games on this list that are only here because I ever have a memory with them or I've done something special with them. This is not one of those games. This is one of the games that I'm here for purely because how good I like the gameplay. You can fine-tune 3 different styles of boards and you can level them up, not to mention each character having their own unique feel and handling. And similar to how you would ride an actual snowboard, lean backwards a little bit on your analog stick while you're turning just to make the turns a little bit more manageable. Gotta lower the speed so you can actually turn. And when I say lower the speed, I mean lower the speed, because you have to on some of these turns. There are some angles or some jumps where if you're not going at full speed, you're just genuinely not gonna make it. I'm not gonna act like this game is all puppies and rainbows though, because it definitely isn't. The CPUs cheat hardcore in this game, and I don't mean just by the rubber banding, which is very aggressive, but I mean like the CPU will immediately time their items. Like as soon as you're going off a ramp or something over like a pit, that's when you're getting hit with a pie. That's when you're getting smacked with a snowman. As soon as you are vulnerable, they're taking advantage of it at every opportunity. It doesn't matter if they hit an item thing or not. They always have an item. I never got to experience playing this multiplayer, but I feel like if you got 4 people in a room and just grinded out a couple races, it'd probably be a really good time. I know normally at the end of this I'd either say I recommend it or give like an alternative or something, but like I don't really have that for this one. If you like the way this gameplay looks, you're probably gonna like the game. If you don't really like snowboarding games, this probably won't do anything for you. Number 13, ESPN NFL 2K5. Have you ever just experienced a game for the first time and it just changed the way you look at other games? Well, that's what 2K5 did for me. I've played a lot of sports games throughout my life, but none of them had consistent physics and animations, all dependent upon an intriguing gameplay loop. It by far has my favorite sprinting system in any sports game ever, where you absolutely have to mash the shit like you're playing Domination in Mario Party 4 just to sprint. But that's not the only way you can sprint. You can hold down the X button, and that way you could get a speed boost, which instead of it being like a general speed increase while you're mashing, to being a sudden burst like a cut. The Create team is super in-depth, and it has one of my favorite features in any sports game, the crib, which is a fully customizable house that you can do whatever you want with. You can even install mini games into it. Create a team is here, and it's very intuitive to make a new team, but your options are very limited, and the stadiums don't register correctly in the locations you set for them. Rather, they're going to be associated ahead of time. I personally think this game is way too easy though. Even on its hardest setting, I'm still able to diagnose what the opposing offenses and defenses are planning. Not to say that I'm a great player or anything, but I did have to make custom sliders just so I can enjoy the game and give myself a proper challenge. And I didn't realize how brutal my sliders actually were until I started my Eagles franchise on my stream, because holy hell, it took us a long time before we were good. The only way we were gaining yards at the beginning was QB draws and from special teams. We weren't doing anything to help ourselves in years 1 and 2. I do have all the VODs for all of those Eagles episodes, so if that's something you'd want to watch, I can definitely do a supercut of the series. Shameless self-promotion aside, I didn't realize how hard my sliders actually were until that moment, but then I got better, not just as a player, but my team got better. And as I was able to develop myself and my team around me, I was able to open up my playbook a little more, be a little more experimental with what I was going to go on. And more specifically, I could bring in my main man, Goop. Goop is a 5'10", 400-pound middle linebacker with 89 speed. So not only did he hit like a truck, he could also probably outrun about 75% of the players in the game. So my good friend Rummel Raider 99 wanted my sliders after he got the game. Or like, I forced him to try them because if I have to suffer, so does he. And he was getting beat so horribly by the computers that I'm pretty sure he quit the game. He can correct me in the comments if that's wrong, but I'm pretty sure he got his ass whipped mightily by the CPU. Just using my sliders. No additional difficulty stuff, just my sliders. Number 12, Mario Kart 8. I've played every Mario Kart game that's ever existed, even all the arcade titles, but none control nearly as smoothly or have I had as good a time with as I have with Mario Kart 8. Don't get me wrong, I like games like Wii, I like Double Dash, I like 64, I even like Mario Kart 7, but none of them hold a candle to 8. While its battle modes were not the best, the racing and the track design was top notch for the entire franchise. Not only was it the first Mario game to have DLC, it nailed the DLC while they were doing it. It had guest characters, it had specialized stages, it even had F-Zero stages. It's so cool. Like, we got a damn Excite Bike stage. That's so fucking weird. Yes, I know it's just an oval, but it is that too in fucking Excite Bike. If you're curious, my main was Metal Mario with the standard kart and the Bowser glider. I don't know why, it just was. That's not the best combo. Obviously, that was Waluigi Wiggler for a long time. I should specify though, I'm not talking about Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I'm talking specifically about Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U, which you should have seen that by what's on screen and you know, all that jazz. But Deluxe is good. I'm not gonna say it's not, but I had a much better time playing on the Wii U gamepad in handheld mode than I did playing on my Switch in handheld mode. I 100%ed Mario Kart 8 Wii U. I wasn't going through the hassle again on the Switch. It wasn't worth getting all the coins to get get like Gold Mario or anything like that. It just wasn't worth it. The Wii U gamepad makes this game the best Mario Kart in the series. I don't know if you've ever held a Wii U gamepad, but it is fucking phenomenal in the hands. It's a little on the heavy side, but it feels great. It honestly feels kind of like the PlayStation Portal does today. Speaking of the PlayStation Portal though, I fucking hate that thing. It is so damn useless. So just to save myself from being angry at that thing, I'm gonna compare the Wii U gamepad to the Steam Deck because it has that kind of feel. Anyway, back to Mario Kart 8. It doesn't have the strongest cast in the series, and I recognize that. I don't want them to go all out with like 60 racers like Smash does with all the fucking people. I don't need Nintendo Kart, I don't need Smash Kart, I don't need anything like that. If they give me the base set roster with Mario characters, I am absolutely fine. And when I mean Mario characters, I mean the quintessential Mario characters. I don't need there to be like a fucking Ninja in the game, or a Goomba. Wow, Goomba would probably be pretty cool, honestly. I'm talking more like the base Mario cast, like the ones you'll find in like a Mario Party with a couple extra sprinkles in there. Because as of right now, 7 slots on this character roster are the Koopalings, which don't get me wrong, that's cool, but they could be just 1 slot and you could just switch between them. Like they're just taking away opportunities from racers that could have otherwise been there. But I do absolutely love this game, and if you have a Wii U or the Semu emulator, give it a shot. If you have a Nintendo Switch, I'll settle for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It's a good game. It's almost the same, but it's not feeling the same in the hands. I just prefer the Wii U's controller. Number 11, Potato Man Seeks the Truth. No, I am not pulling your leg. I am not fucking with you. And yes, this is at number 11. Is it a short game? Absolutely. But it wasn't meant to be long. It was literally made in 48 hours for a game jam. It pokes fun at a lot of tropes of 2D platformers, but it does it in a very nuanced way. It's also not a super easy game. It's definitely a troll style game. Don't get me wrong. It's very sadistic towards the player. Like a lot of stuff comes from on screen trying to kill you, but there is a specific reason why it's on the list. I picked it up because of the Game Grumps. I saw them play it and I was immediately hooked. I had to have this game for myself. That's when I bought it. That's irrelevant to why. But I got so good at it, I started speed running it. And it is one of my favorite games that I've ever ran in my life. I've done games like Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase. I've done games like Blue's Clues. I've done Bob the Builder. I've done NFL Blitz. I've done NFL Blitz full season runs. I've even done Mario 64, 16, 70, and 31 star. But none of them compared to Potato Man. The art style is simplistic. There's not that much text in the game, but it has a lot of variety within its little levels. The desert level, you're kind of just getting acquainted. It's like your tutorial, learn what to expect. The bird level, or the forest, whatever they want to call it, is like a bullet hell halfway through it. The car level kind of feels like you're playing like a side-scrolling version of Frogger. Like you're just jumping, avoiding it, and then you have to like platform through the sharks and stuff. Yeah, that's super cool. But my favorite level in the game is the cave. Just because there are so many times where if you don't know the pattern, you will get fucked. And to fly through that area feels so damn good that I would be willing to never pick up a game like Super Mario 64 again if I could dedicate myself to getting this world record, which won't happen. My PB is very, very far away from it still. I think it's right around 2 minutes away. I gotta pick up more time because the last fucking level of this game is so damn hard that even in a speed run, I probably take 2 or 3 deaths. Let's just keep it a buck here. I'm probably taking 2 or 3 deaths. Not a game over, but at least 2. And of course you find out what the truth is. He finds it. Is it what he wants to hear? I don't know. Play the game. It only takes around 20 minutes to complete it. Disregard the video I have on one of my channels where me and Aaron spent an hour playing it. That was our first playthrough ever. Since then, this game has been ported to mobile, and I believe it's only like $5. You could play it on your phone. You could play it on Steam like I have it. It has full controller support, but honestly, you don't need it. It feels fine to play with just the keyboard. It's not a problem. For $5, it is a great experience. If you want to go get a cracked version, I know multiple sites definitely have it. I looked when I was younger. Sure, some of those links are probably 10 or 15 years old by this point. Well, not 15, I'm not that old. But this game holds a very special place for me. And I think if you play through it, you'll appreciate it as well. It doesn't matter if you like platformers. It doesn't matter if you like shooters. It really doesn't matter what kind of games you play. If you like games in any meaningful way, for as fast as this game was built, you'll find something special out of it. And with that, boys, that's gonna wrap up this episode. We're all the way down to number 11. Next episode, we're gonna start the top 10. I don't know how you guys are feeling, but I'm nervous. But as usual, before I let you guys go, I'm just gonna give you a quick little reminder that we are still doing the giveaway. All you have to do is comment what your favorite game is, and you'll be entered. What will you win? Your choice of any game on our entire list, including the honorable mentions that we'll go over in the finale. Let's get a move on to our recap for the episode. At number 20, we have WarioWare Inc. Mega Micro Games. 19, Sonic Adventure 2. 18, Cruisin' World. 17, NFL Blitz 2001. 16, WCW vs. NWO World Tour. 15, New Super Luigi U. 14, Snowboard Kids 2. 13, ESPN NFL 2K5. 12, Mario Kart 8. And 11, Potato Man Seeks the Truth. So there's where we're looking at right now. I'm excited to see where we go forward and what the impressions will be from the list thus far. As you guys know, I'm pre-recording all the voiceovers, and there's a reason for all this and why it's coming out as it does, and I'll go over that in the finale and the recap. It's not a light topic, but it's one that needs talked about, and it's the reason why I'm doing this list in the first place. But we're not here to talk about that right now. I just want to give a quick thank you to everybody who's been enjoying the series. I don't know how much support this is actually going to get. Again, this is pre-recorded, but I really hope you're enjoying it. But anyway, I'm not going to hold you guys up any longer. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the top 10. Bye-bye.